So this ceasefire that happened, this ceasefire. So a couple of things happened. Monday evening, it was quite chaotic. It was quite chaotic because first, there were a number of tweets and posts that said that there was a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Now, we're going to go through a couple of things to show you that Iran said something different on their end and what happened through the night. And then I'm going to show you what was revealed earlier today, which does not look good for the US, and it damn sure does not look good for Israel. When we talk about this ceasefire, I consider this a win for Iran. And the reason why I consider it a win is because Israel requested the ceasefire. Iran did not request it. I think that Israel bit off more than it could chew. So Iran, and as you'll see, people in Iran are celebrating in the streets right now. So when we want to talk about who really made out the best here, and when we get to the breaking news, you'll see it was Iran. Now, it started with military bases in the Middle East were attacked by Iran. Now, they did warn that if the US were to enter this conflict, that this is what they would do. So we'll get into this. These are some of the bases that were attacked. The bases were already evacuated, from what I understand, before those attacks went through. So again, the U.S. knew that they were going to get the people out beforehand. They were already prepared for that. But this is what started it off.
Also saying no casualties in the attack on the U.S. military base either. So it would seem that maybe, and we hope, fortunately, none of the missiles actually hit the ground.
So, yeah. Those bases there, the people were already evacuated. The U.S. knew about this, and more and more people are starting to call out the way that these events did unfold. And then Monday evening, we see these messages from Donald Trump on Truth Social, where he announced that there was a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here, and we'll break this down.
Ambassador, I've just been alerted to a post from the president. We were discussing his messaging. This is brand new. The caveats are the president of the United States has just posted a news of what he's calling a ceasefire. We don't have fact checking yet or statements yet from other parties. So you're learning this along with our audience. I'm curious your reaction. I'm going to read. This is also a Truth Social post from President Trump. He says it has been fully agreed, again, claims by the president, quote, by and between Israel and Iran, there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours. And then he says that will go on for 12 hours, quote, at which point the war will be considered. And the president, in his style, writes in all caps, ended. Again, reading further from the new statement moments ago, quote, officially Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to what he is calling this 12-day war, which will, the president says, be saluted by the world. And he goes on to include other details.
So that ceasefire was supposed to begin at midnight, right? So let's talk about what happened after that. So he announces this on Truth Social, and people shared it, of course, on X. Of course, eventually made its way to network news. And then people were a little bit confused because he announced the ceasefire, and Israel and Iran were still attacking each other. And I'm going to keep it real here. We're going to be real about this. Iran took some hits because after that ceasefire was announced, Israel basically, from what I saw from the videos, it seems like they threw everything that they had at Iran. They were just trying to bombard them, right? I guess up until midnight, send as much as they could. But don't get it twisted. A lot of those missiles from Iran got through to Israel. Israel took a beating. I believe from what I read, they said 1/3 of Israel took a hit. So Israel was getting Iran took a hit, but Israel was getting their ass whooped. I'm just keeping it real with you. And as you have been able to see, that Iron Dome doesn't stop everything. Then we fast forward past midnight, and they're still firing at each other. So now people are asking, what happened to the ceasefire? So we'll get into that because you're going to hear different sides about this.
My question to you is, given this is coming from one side, but either quickly will be confirmed or not, that's how we track these stories. What is your response, and what does that sound like to you, given your voluminous diplomacy experience, that time scale as announced here by the president?
Well, I believe it, and I believe it for a simple reason. We saw the Iranians retaliate today at two places, al-Assad base, where they hit before, after Qasem Soleimani was killed, and Al Udeid base in Qatar. There were no American casualties. It put the Iranians in a position where they could say, we retaliated. One thing Khamenei could not do was look like they simply surrendered to us. So by retaliating, he can claim we retaliated. He can claim we inflicted damage on Israel. So they're in a position where they can say, okay, we stood up, we didn't give in. The Israelis were in a position where their military was saying we're pretty close to exhausting all the targets that we needed to be able to take out. And I think that the president, all along, he never wanted to get into what he calls the forever wars in the Middle East. He took on his own base in this regard, who clearly people like Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon were very much against taking this step. And his wanting to show that he could use force and then produce a ceasefire quickly makes, in my mind, very credible. The fact that Iran took a step and they can say we did it puts them in a position where they can end it. I would also say whether Prime Minister Netanyahu was prepared right now to end it or not, I think he couldn't say no to President Trump on this. And my guess is there's some possibility that this was even coordinated in advance. I could see an understanding where the president said to Bibi, we will do this, but after we do it, the war has to end. I wouldn't
with an off-ramp ready. So let me ask you about.
So let's pause here for a second. So again, Israel asked for the ceasefire because they exhausted their defenses. This is what I was telling people earlier on, that Israel cannot beat Iran alone. They really can't, right? And I think what Iran did to Israel shows them, hey, this is a taste of what we could do, but that's not all that they can do. The destruction, and you'll see it, the destruction that you saw happen to Israel, that's just a taste of what Iran can do. So keep that in mind. Now, at the same time, mind you, Israel was still killing kids in Gaza. While all this is still going on, and you can see these reports online as well, while all this was still going on, people were still going to humanitarian aid sites to gather aid, and Israel was still killing people that were coming to get aid. So this is what happens when you try to be the bully and you get yourself involved in so many different conflicts. It's just absolutely, absolutely insane. Now I want to show you this as well from Dropside News. This is one of the things they were showing after the ceasefire. Sirens are sounding across northern and central parts of apartheid Israel. The Israeli military has announced it has identified new missile launches from Iran. So you guys see all these targets? The first one here and this one. So when I tell you, again, we can't show you that video footage on here. You guys know how YouTube can be. When I tell you that Israel took a beating, they took a beating, but it's not as though Iran didn't take hits. Iran took hits as well, but look at how much came Israel's way. And this is part of the reason why, like, a lot of us were up pretty late Monday night because we were waiting to see what would happen after that, after midnight, and they were still firing. Now, what is also interesting, when we talk about ceasefire, Sayed Abbas, who is the foreign minister of Iran, this confused people too, because he tweeted, the military operations of our powerful armed forces to punish Israel for its aggression continued until the very last minute at 4 a.m. So he's talking about his time. So that gave people the impression that they were going to continue to fire until 4 a.m. Together with all Iranians, I thank our brave armed forces who remain ready to defend our dear country until the last drop of blood and who responded to any attack by the enemy until the very last minute. So that caused a little bit of confusion from some of us online. I know I was texting like my RBN comrades last night. We were all texting each other back and forth, just like, yo, what is going on? They said there was a ceasefire, but people, like, both of them are still firing. And if foreign minister is saying this, doesn't mean they're going to go till 4 o'clock in the morning. So there was a little bit of confusion there. And then to make things crazier, this was reported from Press TV. They said that Trump's truce claim was fabricated, designed to deflect attention from U.S. humiliation. So according to Press TV, they said there was no ceasefire. See, listen to this. The so-called ceasefire proposal put forward by President Trump on social media is fabricated and designed to deflect attention from Washington's recent humiliation, according to a report. The fabricated media narrative about a ceasefire is meant to divert attention from the blow suffered by the United States. Iran will not respond with words, but through action on the battlefield, and will soon demonstrate the falsehood of these claims to the Zionist regime. So this was another thing that happened, right? On Iran's end, they said there was no ceasefire, that they did not receive a ceasefire proposal. Like, all of this is happening at the same time. So it's just kind of like, okay, so people are pointing fingers and they're like, okay, Trump lied. He lied. But at the end of the day, what basically happened is that because those attacks were still continuing after Trump made that statement, it basically made, I would say, I think Donald Trump was somewhat embarrassed. And I'll show you his comment to the reporter about this today, because he called out Israel and Iran. But I think what he said to Israel was definitely more telling. Now, Professor Morandi talked about this earlier today. He was on RT. Listen to what he said at the very beginning.
Syed Mohammed Morandi, you are most welcome, sir. Israel has accused Iran of violating the truce. Is that the case? And is it a ceasefire Tehran wanted?
It's a ceasefire that the Israeli regime begged for, and I think that was already leaked before this halt of hostilities came about. Of course, there is no agreement, and Iran at any point said that they are going to strike back at the Israeli regime if there are any violations. Iran is not going to tolerate any attack. If anything struck the regime, the Iranians said that.
We'll have to pause there for just a second, because you guys know how YouTube can be, so we can't show like strikes or anything like that, but we'll come back to this part here. But did everybody hear that? So that part's really important. Again, Israel, basically, according to Professor Morandi, Israel begged for this ceasefire. Because honestly, like, and again, I wish I could show you the videos, but we can't, but you can find a lot of them on X. What I saw last night, I like what I saw Monday night, I was just basically like, okay, like, again, that's just a taste of what Iran can do. You guys got to remember, Iran hit Israeli intelligence. They hit the Mossad headquarters, right? They hit one of their bases. That was one of the ones that was next to the hospital. They hit multiple locations in Israel. Remember, Israel isn't big. Iran is huge. So one hit can seem even more mighty because Israel is rather small. Let's get back to his statement here.
To attack Iran, then Iran will strike back very hard. And we saw during the last couple of hours before this informal ceasefire came into effect, how Iran hammered the Israeli regime from north to south. So if they're looking for an excuse for a fight, they're going to get it. But the Iranians have said that they will discontinue firing at the regime as long as the regime refrains from new aggression.
Refrains from new aggression. So another thing that I wanted to say to you guys is this. That part is important because Benjamin Netanyahu made a statement saying that if Iran starts to build a nuclear weapon, again, we had no proof of this, then Israel is going to start attacking them again. Now, just think about that. They can say this at any time. Benjamin Netanyahu can come to Congress and speak at Congress again, which, by the way, they need to stop letting this war criminal come to the United States. But he can come to Congress and speak again, and he can tell everybody there, guess what? We saw it. We have intel that they're building a nuclear weapon. And he doesn't have to produce any evidence because the U.S. government is just inching to go to war anyway because of their agreements with the military contractors. So Iran is not asleep. Iran is very much aware that Israel cannot be trusted. And they made it very clear, according to Professor Morandi, the moment that they decide that, Israel starts attacking them again, they're going to start firing right back. Now, I say all that to say this. Donald Trump was not happy about any of this. And like I said, I think that he was embarrassed. And I think you'll see that during this interview here. He goes on to say that he is not happy.
But reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think they both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
That part right there is very damning for Israel because Donald Trump said, I do not like the fact that Israel went after them this morning, right? That's important because Israel has claimed that Iran broke the ceasefire. But Donald Trump's statement right there lets you know that Israel was firing it at them. Right? So just keep that in mind.
Yahoo, sir. Have you spoken to him this morning? How confident are you
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all, and frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots, they're after me. They want to try and demean. Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there, absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place.
That's false. And here comes another embarrassment when we get through this video, because the news that was reported recently, that is false information. Those nuclear sites are not ruined. And also, the uranium was moved prior to the attacks. Now, guys, put your thinking caps on because we're going to put all this together, okay? Put your thinking caps on.
This is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers.
Yeah, CNN, MSNBC, also Fox News. Yeah, they do lie. They do lie often. However, they're not lying about this one. All you have to do is watch one of the many interviews that Professor Morandi has done on YouTube, on independent media, talking about this. Those sites are not gone. Those sites are not ruined. This is the part, again, Trump has to, I guess in his mind, he's like, I'm going to tell you that so you feel like the USA did their thing and we got to win. We walked away with the win. But the USA didn't do their thing. And those sites are not gone. And you did not destroy the uranium because the uranium was already removed before those attacks happened. When I tell you that Iran had been preparing for this for days, for years, right? They already knew. Believe me.
You really are. You realize it. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either.
So this is Donald Trump being embarrassed. He feels as though they made him look like a fool. You see, because here's the thing. Say what you want about Donald Trump, but at the end of the day, he doesn't like to look foolish. He doesn't like to be embarrassed. That's one thing I think we can all agree on, right? That's an ego thing there. And Israel made him look like a fool when they continued. He was right about that part. They did try to basically was hitting Iran with everything they got. And it was right after Donald Trump announced that there was a ceasefire. So yeah, it's embarrassing. And it does, make you look some kind of way after you made that announcement. So a lot of people are pointing to this and they're saying that, whoa, Donald Trump is criticizing Israel. So yeah, two things can be true at the same time. Yes, he's criticizing Israel and he's upset because he was embarrassed and made to look like a fool. And also, this is part of the theater. Part of politics is theater. We are the audience and they're on the stage. The politicians are on the stage and their job is to keep us engaged and to convince us of whatever they try to convince us of. So keep it this way. Is Donald Trump so upset to the point that he's going to stop supporting Israel? No. Is Donald Trump so upset to the point that he's going to refuse to give Israel weapons? No. That's how you know part of this is theater. So two things can be true at the same time. Let me let it continue.
But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Yeah. So theater, right, guys? And that's pretty much it there. They follow him as he walks away. So theater. And you know what? A lot of times it works because a lot of people are talking about the fact that he used profanity instead of focusing on the game that is being played in front of us. The jig is up, ladies and gentlemen, right? I think they think that we are foolish, but people are watching independent media. And just to show you how devious Israel has been, this is absolutely insane. The Washington Post posted audio of the Mossad. They were calling the Iranian regime generals and basically telling them that they had to leave the country in 12 hours or they were going to kill their wife and kids. Now you listen to this and you tell me where the real terror comes from.
الو سردار سردار سلام علیکم سردار سلام علیکم داری من از کشوری زنگ میزنم که 2 ساعت پیش سلامی باقری و شمخانی رو فرستاد جهنم. الان برای تو بهت پیشنهاد میکنم اومد رو خط بیارش رو خط. الان صدامو داری؟ گوش کن. من از کشوری زنگ میزنم به توضیح میدم. خوب گوش کن. من از کشوری زنگ میزنم که 2 ساعت پیش باقری سلامی شمخانی رو دونه دونه فرستاد جهنم. الان تنها پیشنهادی هم که به تو میکنم هم میتونم بهت پیشنهاد کنم 12 ساعت وقت داری که پاتو بگیری با زن و بچت فرار کنی وگرنه
Let's go back a little bit here because I just want you to be able to read this. The only advice I'm giving you right now, I can advise you now. You have 12 hours to escape with your wife and child.
بگیری با زن و بچت فرار کنی وگرنه تو الان تو لیست مایی تو دونه دونه تو لیستی که من دارم نگاه میکنم و هدف بعدی ما هستیم با خاک تو خانوادت بچه‌هات.
See, this is what they like to do. We will hit you, your family, your children, everyone with the dirt. I only call to tell you, look, as long as there's time. See, you see what they like to do? They love to kill women and children. They love to kill women and children, but they want you to believe everybody else is the terror. Think about that.
همه رو میزنی فقط زنگ زدم بهت بگم ببین تا وقتش هست بهت مهلت میدم گفتم 12 ساعت از همین الان دقیقه که با صحبت کردم وقت داری فرار کنی وگرنه هر چی دیدی از چش خودت دیدی ما از رگ گردنم به تو نزدیکتریم اینو خوب بکن تو گوشت خدا نگهدار. من بهت گفتم من الان قشنگ بهت گفتم دیگه بهت مهلت دادم کجا رو گرفتم تمام این خونخوارا تمام این مثل سلامی و امثالشو فرستادیم همون جایی که باید خیلی زودتر میرفتن تو هم میخوای یکی از اونا باشی تو هم میخوای بعدی باشی تو لیست تو هم میخوای زن و بچه‌تو به فنا بدی
Do you also want to destroy your wife and child? They are saying. Now, I don't know whose voice this is. Obviously, the voice is somewhat scrambled. Some people think they believe it sounds like Netanyahu. I don't know. But yeah, you guys can see what is happening here.
خب دارم بهت میگم بهت پیشنهاد دادم زنگ زدم بهت بگم 12 ساعت وقت داری یه فیلم درست کنید ما از این حکومت
You have 12 hours to make a video saying we have walked away from this government and we are unwilling to sacrifice our lives, right? So they were trying to get them to do this.
دست کشیدیم و نمیخوایم جونمون رو قربونی آدمایی کنیم که زدن کشورمون رو 46 سال نابود
For people who destroyed our country for 46 years. So does everybody see what's happening here? They were threatening, and I'm surprised the Washington Post published this. They were threatening Iranian generals by threatening to kill their kids and their wives, and that if they didn't do what they were told, which what they were telling them to do was to basically renounce the regime in Iran. So do you see now, does this show you how some people kind of just turn like that on a dime? Well, think about this now. When you see like generals or politicians kind of do something that seems to be unusual and people are like, whoa, I can't believe that happened. You see how this works? And it was going to be revealed to the world that they were calling out the regime. And then more people would say, oh, okay, look, even their own generals are against this, not knowing what happened behind the scenes, that they threatened to kill their wife and their kids. Very evil.
بود کردن فقط کشتن فقط دزدیدن فقط بردن فقط تیکه کردن من آدرس تلگرام برات میدم بفرست برات میفرستم الان اسمسش میکنم
And apparently using Telegram there. So do you see how desperate Israel is to try to get the world on their side? Because they know, again, like a lot of people are not pro-Israel anymore, especially after the genocide. They are very much aware of that. And you guys got to see this, as I've said before, you got to see some of the damage that was done to Israel. You have to see what it looks like now. Because like I said, and I'll keep it muted because I think they're playing music. Iran was not playing around. And again, this is just some of the things. Some of the things. This is Israel. That's not Gaza. So you guys see that? You see how, yeah. They don't want you to see that. That's why Israel is the one that called for the ceasefire, because Iran was hitting them. They were definitely getting through. Now, I say it's still a win for Iran because they're in the streets celebrating, fam. Iran is out there like, let us do the damn thing. People across Iran are celebrating the defeat of the Western-backed genocidal monsters in Tel Aviv. Like I said, they're happy. Look. Do they look afraid to you? No. Do you see, notice you don't see them in shelters, right? Like they're not running to shelters, bomb shelters or anything like that. They look afraid? Do they look scared? Hells no. Now, this is important because we're getting to the breaking news. We're getting to the breaking news. When you see the breaking news that came through, this is all very telling, and the White House is pissed that they got this information. It's leaked information. I think it was purposefully leaked. But here we go. This just goes to show you the U.S. did not do the damage. Check this out.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We have major breaking news into CNN. 3 sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back a few months.
That's right. So,
oh, drop the beat. We gotta drop the beat. Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. All right. Oh, yes. And the White House is furious. They are furious about this. Let's continue.
this is an assessment that actually is out from the Defense Intelligence Agency. That is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it was based on a battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. CENTCOM after the strikes, according to one of the sources. Let's go to CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand, who has this exclusive new reporting. This is to that question that has been asked about how much damage has been done. This is a real question. It's also a political question that has been to something that Donald Trump has been sort of dealing with here recently. What are you learning, Natasha?
Yeah, look, Brianna, this is the first assessment that we are getting that the U.S. intelligence community has found about the battle damage that resulted from those U.S. military strikes on these 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And as you said, it was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago, and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly happened here. But based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now,
Isn't this similar to what Iran said after the attack? Isn't this similar to what Professor Morandi said after the attack, that they did not ruin the core component? Not only that, but the uranium wasn't even there. Because like I said, Iran's been preparing for this. So they removed the uranium before the attack even happened. It's embarrassing. And you'll see how it's embarrassing when you hear the response from the White House.
Presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community."
Pause. First, she says it's flat out wrong, and then she says that it was top secret. If it was flat out wrong, why was it top secret? If it was flat out wrong, why was it top secret? If it was flat out wrong, why didn't you get ahead of it, Carolyn? With all the press conferences that they have, why didn't you get ahead of it and say, just FYI, there's this, intel out there and it is false, because it wasn't wrong. We have seen multiple reports from Iran that basically said the same thing that CNN said, and they said it first. Who are you going to believe? If the Iranian people are celebrating in the streets, do you think they would be celebrating if the core component was destroyed? If they lost all the uranium, you think they would be cheering about that? They outsmarted you. This is a win for Iran. And that's what I've been telling people. People on social media are saying the ceasefire is a win for Israel. No, it's not. They asked for it. They asked for it because they were getting their ass kicked. It's a win for Iran because Iran basically got the upper hand. They outsmarted them. They knew not to have the materials there. Because again, they've been preparing for years. So they knew. Listen to the rest.
Leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration. Now, it is worth noting here that there has been dissent.
Pause this. This operation was a sham. Miss Mississippi said Trump weakness on full display. Exactly. I'm trying to tell people this operation was BS. It's basically what this was. And people trying to show whether or not they got the upper hand, right? But this was a waste. And people died because of it. There were people that died in Israel because of those strikes. There were people that died in Iran because of those strikes. Again, where are these materials that you claim are there? They're not even there. This is why a lot of times the United States, we look like a fool on the world stage. And this is one of those moments, right? One of those moments.
I'd say within the intelligence community, within the defense community, about just how much of an impact these massive bunker buster bombs would actually have on Iran's nuclear facilities. It was far from certain, given that these bombs had never been tested in an actual combat scenario, whether they would actually penetrate those very, very deep underground tunnels that lie underneath these nuclear facilities. And what we are told is that as of now, this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment, it does conclude at this point, again, it is still very early, that those underground facilities, including the centrifuges, including the highly enriched uranium that everyone has been talking so much about, those are largely intact. Now, of course, this does stand at odds with what President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have been saying in recent days about the impact of these U.S. military strikes. Of course, President Trump said it was totally obliterated, and Secretary Hegseth did as well. And he actually also provided CNN with a statement. And he said that, quote, based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission. Now,
yeah, of course. Then they all had their statements written for them. So let's make it very clear, ladies and gentlemen. This was all, I feel like this was a script. This was all scripted. The United States government knew to bomb in a certain way that it wasn't actually going to break the core of that. I think they knew that. I think this was a test. They knew that they did not damage or ruin the core of of the nuclear sites. They knew that. They knew that because I knew that. Now, how did I know that and they didn't know that? There was other forms of media that already reported this before CNN got a hold of it. CNN late as usual. But no, they didn't destroy it. And you're fooling yourselves if you believe that. Again, do you really think the Iranian people will be celebrating out in the streets right now if all that happened? It did not happen. And to make it worse, they said the attacks that happened from the United States only just set them back a couple of months. Iran has been preparing this for years. They knew that this day was going to come. The ceasefire, this information, this whole operation has been a win for Iran because now Israel was saying that they are going to not focus on Iran right now unless they start trying to develop a nuclear weapon again. Again, no evidence, no nothing. Right? Funny how they can have one, but other people aren't supposed to have one, right? This exception for this European settler place. Then on top of that, Israel is now saying they're going to direct their focus back to Gaza. So see, they're going to go back to focusing on killing kids and women who are going to retrieve aid, which is they've already been killing them, but they want to put the sole focus on that because they know those kids and those women can't fight them back. They want to bully someone that's not going to knock them out. They want to bully someone that got their hands tied behind their back. They don't want to fight someone that's going to punch them in the face. Israel is the problem. Israel is fighting Lebanon. They've been bombing Lebanon. They've invaded Syria. They have been obviously striking Iran. They started a genocide in Gaza. And as I said before, those numbers were underreported. It is now being reported that over 400,000 people, 400,000 gone in Gaza. That does not include the people who are still buried under the rubble. Corporate media lied to you as usual. Those of us on independent media have been telling you for the longest time that number was higher than what they told you that it was. And you still even have controlled opposition people. You got Bernie Sanders, who just went on to Joe Rogan, still repeating that lie. 60,000 people. If I saw that report that came out a couple of days ago, he saw that report. They're trying to, in so many ways, make it seem like Israel did not kill as many people as they did. Because if all the politicians have to turn around and say, yes, Israel committed a genocide, well, then the American people are going to be like, why are you giving money to Israel? It's a win for Iran. Wow, wow, wow. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.